We all know the story. 1817, Adams, Tennessee. John Bell and his family are tormented by an entity so nasty, so verbose, and so relentless that it becomes the most famous ghost story in American history. The Bell Witch. Kate. She beat them, she cursed them, and she eventually, allegedly, killed John Bell. But here's the thing everyone forgets. Before she vanished in the 1820s, she made a promise. She told the family she would return in 107 years. Fast forward. It's the Jazz Age. There are cars on the dirt roads of Tennessee. Radios are playing ragtime in the farmhouse parlors. The Civil War is a memory. The Bell Witch is just a dusty story for scaring kids on porches. Right? Wrong. Because the math became undeniable. 1828 plus 107 years equals 1935. In the 1920s and 30s, something woke up in Adams. It wasn't just bumps in the night. It was a revival of fear, fueled by a descendant desperate to rewrite history, a legendary red book that divided a town, and the terrifying realization that Kate might just be a woman of her word. Buckle up. We aren't looking at the 1800s today. We're diving into the Bell Witch's forgotten sequel, the 20th Century Terror. To understand the aftermath, we have to understand the setting. Adams, Tennessee in the 1920s wasn't the frontier anymore. It was a modernizing agricultural town trying to keep up with the roaring 20s. But beneath the surface of Model Ts and new electric lights, the old ways ran deep. You couldn't pave over a century of trauma. For 100 years, there were no definitive books. The legend of Kate survived entirely on what I call the porch whisper network. Grandparents told grandkids. Neighbors terrified newcomers. The story morphed, twisted, and got bloodier with every telling. By the 1920s, the Bell, which wasn't just a ghost, she was the cultural glue of the region. Everyone knew someone whose cousin's dog got slapped by an invisible hand near the old Bell property. But by the late 20s, you had a generation gap. The young folks, listening to the radio and dreaming of moving to Nashville, started rolling their eyes. The witch was old-timer nonsense. It was superstition. This skepticism is important because it created an environment where the legend needed proof to survive the modern era. It needed a champion. Enter Charles Bailey Bell. He's the great-grandson of John Bell, the victim. By the 1930s, Charles is a respected doctor living in Nashville. He's educated, he's modern, and he possesses something nobody else has, the family's secret manuscripts. Or so he claimed. Imagine being a doctor in the 30s, trying to be taken seriously, but everywhere you go, people say, "Oh, you're one of those Bells, the haunted ones." It drove him crazy. Charles decided he needed to take control of the narrative. He was going to write the definitive book that would clear his family's name and prove that they weren't just backwoods lunatics tormented by a demon. Charles began compiling his book in the early 30s. But here's the kicker. He started changing things. The Porch Whisper Network remembered Kate as a nasty, vindictive poltergeist. Charles, he started spinning a theory that the witch was actually a good spirit, a guardian angel sent to correct a flaw in the family line. He was trying to gentrify the ghost story. 1934, a year before the prophesied return, Charles Bailey Bell publishes The Bell Witch, a mysterious spirit. It was bound in a striking red cover. Locally, it became known simply as the Red Book. This wasn't a Stephen King novel release. This was a local atomic bomb. The book sold out instantly in Tennessee. People were reading it in feed stores, in church pews, on street corners. Suddenly, the oral tradition was in print. It validated the town's trauma. See, it's real. It's in a book. But then, they actually read his good spirit theories. The old-timers were furious. They saw Charles's sanitized version as a betrayal. They remembered the stories of needles stuck in people, of physical beatings. They didn't want a guardian angel. They wanted their monster. A schism formed in Adams between the book believers and the porch truthers. But beneath the arguments about the book, a deeper, colder current was running through the town. The date was getting closer. 1935, the year Kate promised to return to the Bell descendants. The publication of the book felt like ringing a dinner bell for a starving predator. Had Charles Bailey Bell just invited her back? Around the time the book came out, the reports started. Not loud ones, just whispers at first. People near the old Bell farm reporting strange lights in the woods again. Unusual animal noises that didn't belong in Tennessee. The feeling of being watched near the cavern on the riverbank. The dormant volcano was starting to smoke. Even Charles Bailey Bell seemed rattled. There are accounts that after publishing the book, his demeanor changed. He became paranoid. Had he kicked a hornet's nest? Some say he started hearing the faint scratching sounds in his own Nashville home. The same sounds that started the torture of his great-grandfather over a century prior. The Red Book didn't just stay in Tennessee. It started circulating nationally. Suddenly, reporters from big city papers, folklorists, and early paranormal enthusiasts were taking the train to Adams. The sleepy town was becoming a sideshow. They wanted to see the cave. They wanted to talk to a bell. They wanted to be there when the clock struck 1935. By New Year's Eve, 1934, the tension in Adams could crack stone. The Red Book had reopened old wounds. The descendant was terrified. The tourists were watching. The stage was perfectly set. The 107 years were up. And as the calendar turned to 1935, everyone asked the same question. Would Kate show up? Spoiler alert, she didn't just show up. She brought friends. Join us in Act 2 as we dive into the year of the return, the bizarre seances of the late 30s, and the terrifying accounts that the history books tried to bury. The night of December 31st, 1934, was unlike any other in Adams, Tennessee. While the rest of the country was singing Auld Lang Syne, the descendants of the Bell family were checking their locks. The 107-year countdown was over. Legend said Kate would return to the living descendants this year. In Nashville, Dr. Charles Bailey Bell reportedly stayed awake with a shotgun and a Bible. The air wasn't just cold. It was electric with a century of anticipation. She didn't come with a bang. She came with a scratch. By late January 1935, reports began to surface. It started in the Old Bell Farm area. Residents reported the sound of heavy dogs running across porches where no dogs existed. But the most chilling account came from the Dr. Bell himself. He claimed that the faint, whispering voice his ancestors described began to emanate from the walls of his own home. The witch wasn't just a story anymore. She was a roommate. By the summer of 1935, Adams was a madhouse. Curiosity seekers from as far away as New York arrived in their Ford the 5th 8S, desperate to see the Bell Witch Cave. This wasn't a curated tour. It was a trek into the dark. Local boys charged a nickel to lead people to the entrance. Accounts from this period describe visitors fleeing the cave in terror, claiming their flashlights were snatched by invisible hands or that they heard a woman cackling from the limestone depths. The mid-1930s were the height of the spiritualism revival, and Kate was the ultimate prize. Self-proclaimed mediums descended on Tennessee. In 1936, a high-profile seance was reportedly held near the site of the old Bell homestead. Eyewitnesses claimed the heavy oak table didn't just rap, it levitated. The spirit that spoke didn't sound like a guardian angel, though. It screamed, it cursed, it reminded everyone that the Red Book was a lie. As radio became the dominant technology, the haunting modernized. There are obscure accounts from 1937 of families in Robertson County hearing their vacuum tube radios pick up a voice that wasn't a broadcast. Between the big band music and the news, a raspy, high-pitched female voice would break through, reciting the names of people in the room. This was electronic voice phenomenon decades before it had a name. In 1944, the era of the aftermath took a tragic turn. Dr. Charles Bailey Bell, the man who brought the witch back into the public eye, passed away. But his final years were allegedly spent in a state of constant agitation. He told friends he felt squeezed by the entity he tried to sanitize. Upon his death, rumors swirled that his Red Book manuscripts, the ones containing the real secrets, had vanished. Did he hide them? Or did Kate take back her secrets? As the 1940s began, the world's attention shifted to the war. But even the U.S. military couldn't escape the witch. Soldiers stationed at nearby training camps, like Camp Forest, whispered about the Witch of the Woods. There are accounts of patrols getting lost in the Robertson County brush. reporting that their compasses spun wildly and that they were pelted with stones by an unseen enemy. Even in the face of global war, Kate demanded her local tribute of fear. We in the 1940s with a chilling discovery. In a small home in Adams, a distant relative cleaning out a basement found a locked trunk. Inside wasn't gold or photos, but a series of wax cylinder recordings dated from the late 1930s. The label simply read, K, speaking. As the needle touched the wax, the sound that emerged wasn't human. But before the recording could be finished, the house caught fire. Was someone, or something, still protecting the silence? Join us for Act 3 as we enter the 1950s and 60s, where the bell which goes to Hollywood and the hauntings take a physical, violent turn. Welcome back to Hour 3. We left you in the late 40s with a house fire consuming the only known audio recordings of what might have been the entity. Convenient, wasn't it? The wax cylinders were ash. The message was received loud and clear by the folks in Adams. Some things aren't meant for the record player. The return era closed with smoke, not answers. The 1950s arrived. America wanted normalcy. They wanted Ike, interstate highways, and poodle skirts. They did not want 19th century frontier demons. In Adams, there was a concerted effort to bury the legend again. People stopped talking about it to outsiders. If you heard a scratch in the wall, you turned up the rock and roll on the radio. It was a decade of repression. But while the town went silent, pop culture got loud. The 50s saw the rise of horror comics and B-movies. The Belle Witch legend started getting filtered through Hollywood tropes. She stopped being a complex, vindictive spirit tied to a specific family and started being portrayed in the national consciousness as a generic swamp hag or a jump scare monster. The nuance of the Red Book era was gone. You can only repress something for so long. By the mid-1960s, the counterculture was questioning everything, and in Adams, the entity decided to remind everyone it was still there. But the activity changed. The whispering stopped. The violence started. The epicenter shifted away from the old farm sites and focused intensely on the Belle Witch Cave along the Red River. This period became known locally as the Season of Stones. Accounts from hunters, fishermen, and trespassing teenagers in the mid-60s all reported the same phenomenon near the cave, being pelted by rocks that seemed to fall straight out of the clear blue sky. These weren't pebbles. These were fist-sized river stones thrown with pinpoint accuracy by an invisible assailant. The most famous account of this era involves a troop of Boy Scouts camping near the river in the late 60s. According to the legend, which was widely circulated in local newspapers, their campsite was decimated in the middle of the night. Tents were ripped, gear was thrown into the river, and the troop leader claimed he was physically shoved by a pair of cold, invisible hands. They packed up at 3 a.m. and never returned. The violence attracted a new kind of attention. The late 60s saw the rise of scientific paranormal research. Guys in tweed jackets with reel-to-reel tape recorders and EMF meters descended on the cave. They weren't there to write folklore. They were there to debunk it with science. The Belle Witch, however, doesn't like being tested. The account from these early researchers are hilarious in their consistency. Brand new batteries would die instantly near the cave entrance. Expensive recording tape would snap. Cameras would jam. It was as if the entity was technologically illiterate, or perhaps incredibly savvy. By the end of the 1960s, the Belle Witch had survived the attempt to sanitize her in the 30s, the media circus of the 40s, and the scientific scrutiny of the 60s. She had evolved from a pioneer ghost into a modern violent poltergeist. But as the 70s approached, the biggest change was yet to come. The town of Adams realized that if they couldn't exorcise the demon, they might as well monetize it. The 1970s brought a seismic shift to Adams. If you can't beat him, charge him. The Belle Witch Cave, once a forbidden site, transformed into a commercial enterprise. Guided tours, gift shops, and later, even haunted hayrides capitalized on the legend. Kate, the tormentor of John Bell, became Kate, the tourist attraction. The cave and surrounding property eventually came under the ownership of descendants of the Bell family, who embraced the legend. They became the new caretakers, balancing the preservation of a historical site with the demands of a lucrative tourist industry. But even with ticket sales, some claim Kate still had a say in who entered her domain. Hollywood came knocking again, this time for real. In the early 2000s, the Blair Witch Project rebooted the found footage horror genre, and the Bell Witch legend, being the progenitor of real American hauntings, finally got its own cinematic moment with films like An American Haunting. While often criticized for historical inaccuracies, these movies solidified the Bell Witch's place in the modern horror pantheon. Despite the commercialization, reports of unexplained phenomena at the Bell Witch Cave didn't stop. Visitors tell tales of disembodied whispers, sudden drops in temperature, and the unsettling feeling of being touched or pushed. Even hardened skeptics have walked away unnerved, unable to explain away everything as just imagination. A popular modern myth emerged. Taking a rock from the Bell Witch Cave ensures bad luck or even supernatural retaliation. Tour guides often warn against it, reinforcing the idea that Kate still holds dominion. Online forums are rife with stories of people who took a souvenir rock and subsequently experienced everything from car trouble to terrifying personal hauntings. The digital age brought a new wave of investigators. Ghost hunters with their infrared cameras and complex meters descended on Adams. YouTube is filled with videos of people attempting to communicate with Kate, often yielding ambiguous results, but keeping the legend alive and well for a new generation. As we draw to a close, the central question remains: is the Bell Witch real? Was she ever a literal entity, or merely a reflection of the fears and anxieties of an isolated pioneer community, kept alive by generations of storytelling? In the 2000s, renewed historical research questioned the validity of many original accounts, suggesting exaggeration and fabrication. The direct bloodline of the Bell family is vast and spread out, but those who still live in or near Adams carry the weight of the name. They are often asked about the witch, forced to reconcile their family history with their modern lives. For some, it's a source of pride. For others, a constant, uncomfortable shadow. Perhaps the true power of the Bell, which isn't in her physical manifestation, but in what she represents. She is a reminder of the raw, untamed spirit of the American frontier, a dark mirror reflecting the patriarchal anxieties of the 19th century. She shows how a legend can evolve, adapt, and survive through centuries of changing technology and societal norms, forever haunting the landscape of American folklore. Today, the Bell Witch Cave still stands, a monument to a legendary haunting. Thousands visit each year, seeking a thrill, a scare, or perhaps a genuine encounter. Most leave with nothing but goosebumps. Some leave with a story they can't explain. She promised to return in 107 years, and by many accounts, she did. But her promise was a recurring one. Is Kate still lurking, waiting for another centennial to announce her presence? Or is her legacy merely a testament to the power of a good story? Etched into the very soil of Tennessee, the Bell Witch remains. A name, a legend, a shadow across the centuries. And whether you believe in her or not, her story is far from over.